Hello and welcome to Game Changer Chats. I am Tevis. I'm founder and CEO of Balance Integration, and we started this series basically because I have a book coming out called The Game Changer's Guide to Radical Success. And part of what inspired me to write it was in working with a lot of executives, professionals, normal people on the street, talking to cab drivers, whoever, it struck me that there are people all around us all the time who are giving themselves permission to live their lives on their own terms. And maybe they get halfway through their lives kind of checking all the boxes, and then suddenly they pick their heads up and go, whoa, there's a whole host of things and impact I would like. But the whole idea behind this series is to bring to bear people like Amanda Roman, people like Dave Jakubowski, the founder of Eureka, or my good friend Jeff Cherry, who is a Conscious Capital an incubator angel investor who got an award from Pope Francis. Like just people like me and you who get up every day and go, I really want to do something with this lifetime. And so we're having these chats. I don't know how long they're going to go on. I think they're going to go on until I run out of interesting people, which is going to be tough because I tend to find people pretty interesting. But anyway, I think we're on chat 7. If you are a friend of Amanda's or have stumbled on this through social, then there's a whole host of them already posted on our website, and I know that Amanda and I are going to socialize this as well. So welcome to our conversation. Welcome, Amanda Roman.
Thank you so much.
This is my virtual hug. My dad as a kid, okay, this is going to go right into our conversation. My dad as a kid, it always irritated me, but he would always say, oh, honey, just give yourself a hug, right? And I never knew how important knowing how to give myself a hug was going to be as an adult, right? Because, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do it. I dare you to do it. It feels really good. Everybody, you should do it. It feels really nice. So, Amanda, tell me something. Before we dive into why you're amazing and how you kick ass and how you've always made choices on your own terms, because I know that's what's going to come to the surface. But before we dive into that, one of the favorite things I love to start these conversations with is a really simple question. What was fun for you as a little kid?
Well, first I want to say thank you for including me in this series. I am honored and always love talking with you. And I think it's going to be so much fun to have this conversation with other folks today. So thank you so much for inviting me. Really looking forward to reading your book and learning from the other presenters on this series. And I would say one of the most fun things for me, and I'll also note, since you mentioned your dad, my dad's actually on the call, so I'm glad he's able to join us.
Hi, Dad.
So I'm sure he'll have lots of interesting reference points as well. But I think one of the things I had the most fun doing when I was growing up was riding my bike. I was very fortunate to grow up in a beautiful countryside in rural New Jersey, which is actually where I returned to and I'm living right now. And just being able to ride through the cornfields and, the typical feel the breeze in your hair and see the birds, floating above and stop and see friends and just think about life. That's probably my fondest, most fun memory as a kid.
God, you just you put me in my own reverie of that freedom. Mm-hmm. When you're a kid, you're too young to drive, but something about a bicycle really gives you autonomy.
Yes.
Like you're the one, you're the decider, right?
Right.
You're the one. Do I go right? Do I go left? Am I going to stop and see Bobby or whoever, or do I just keep on cruising because I'm having so much fun? So yeah. That freedom and autonomy. Yeah, see, I have little tears in my eye.
Oh.
I'm such a sap. I am such a sap. So okay, Miss Bike Rider, I have a feeling that you still bike ride because we have had the pleasure of having lunch and cocktails a couple times, and I feel like bike riding has come up a couple
Yeah,
of times.
I don't do it as often in the summer, but I don't know if you can see in the corner, I got at the beginning of the pandemic, I bought a spin bike for my office so that I can, keep doing that at least from the comfort of my home when I need to and in the heat. So I should probably be riding it a little bit more than I am right now, but I do enjoy that as well. So yes, still an active part.
I kind of feel like you're a mind reader because I've been shopping for spin bikes. So more later, because this is not
Okay.
product placement, but more later on which one you chose and why.
Absolutely.
So for people who don't know you, like I gave them a top line. I said that your previous role, your most recent role as the Chief Innovation Officer, which is such a sexy title for Conscious Capitalism, which is such a sexy concept, right? It is only the latest in your kind of amazing self-invention of yourself as being this really sovereign being, right? And I like the word sovereignty because we give so much of ourselves over to others. We give ownership of so many aspects of our identity over to others. And this notion of sovereignty is, oh, wait, I am in service to me, right? I am my own domain, right? And I really feel like in the conversations we've had about your life, your spirituality, your career, your social realm, your creativity, that sovereignty really comes forward. So can you just give people who have not sat with you at Westville on 18th Street, screaming over the den of really loud eaters, right? Can you just give them kind of a, like what you like people to know about your journey?
Yeah, thank you for that opportunity. And definitely look forward to getting back to being able to meet up in New York and eating and supporting all of our friends in the restaurant industry. But there's so much I could say, and I will start by saying I really appreciate the way that you just described that, and I never really thought about myself in relation to sovereignty in exactly that way, and I deeply resonate with that. So thank you so much for giving me that additional perspective and kind of seeing that in me, Tevis. And I think that this is one of the hardest questions, I think, in some ways for me to answer, because my life, I typically like asking other people about themselves and looking for those ways, as you said, to help them or to support them, and to use your analogy, maybe give them a piece of something that I hold. And one of the things that I've been really grateful for, even before we came into this, pandemic and quarantine situation, I've been on a pretty self-reflective journey pretty intentionally over the last year and a half, and asking myself some of those questions and what are the ways I would like people to kind of see me or look at me or react to the type of work that I'm doing. And I think that one of the things I have found, no matter what role I have had the fortune and the opportunity to serve in, I'm really about helping build cultures where people can thrive and can learn about the strengths that they have. And so I think that that's something, through the way that I was raised. I was brought up in a big Italian-American family, and I had the fortune of going to Catholic schooling for my entire career. Actually, I went all the way from kindergarten all the way through college. I went to the Catholic University of America. And so that faith component has always been important to me and informed, I think, a lot of the decisions that I have made and a lot of the perspectives that I have. And so having that element of knowing that we each carry something special, and that I was given and afforded many opportunities to explore what that meant at a very young age. I mean, I'm talking even preteen years, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit. I knew what it was that I had to offer, at least what I wanted to offer to the world. And so I knew it was that everyone else was capable of that. And I loved how you opened the session today. I don't think it matters if you're a cab driver or a busboy or you're the CEO or, you're a state legislator, whatever professional role you may take on in life. I think that every human being is amazing and everyone has these innate talents and skills and opportunities, but they don't always know either one, how to find them, or two, they don't have spaces to bring them to life. And so I think at the end of the day, I've always looked for opportunities to create space where, yes, I can bring what I think I would like to contribute, but I can also help other people bring that out of themselves. And I've really learned to trust the wisdom in diversity when you do that for folks and you help kind of bring all of those assets and experiences to the fore. Really, really amazing things happen that, you know, I have found to be game changing in lots of ways.
Well, I want to pause you because here's beautiful Amanda Catherine Roman, Italian family, New Jersey, riding her bike through cornfields, right? So a couple of things really stand out about your story. And one is the way you described what your impact is all about building culture. And there's a question that begs to be asked that's not like, well, I'm going to go into marketing or I'm going to be head of customer service at blah, 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 or I'm going to be a nurse or a doctor. Like, there's a lot of self-invention that has been going on all along that process, right? Like that's not actually a job title is what I'm saying. And it's not a neat little box that you say, oh, if I focus on this, I'm going to make X amount of money, or I'm going to get a C whatever job, because when you and I started, there was no chief innovation officer, chief cultural officer, et cetera. But I'm also privy to know enough about your journey that none of your roles have been super stereotypical, right? They haven't been sit down, shut up, and just make some money kind of roles, right? Which
I would not do well.
Right, yeah, good for you. So, and you brought up spirituality, and what's so beautiful is so many of us rue or we lament the spirituality that we are raised in, right? And I love what you said. I am so fortunate to have been raised in the Catholic faith. And this isn't because I have Mother Teresa here, because I've got a Buddhist calendar from Ubud, right? like I love them all. Believe me, I'm like the life guy from that perspective. But so let's talk about freedom and let's talk about spirituality. And I want to hear you kind of open up, because I don't think the average person considers Catholicism as a springboard for self-expression, right? And so can you open up your take on that? Can you open up how it gave you what it gave you?
Yeah, I think an interesting game maybe we'll play sometime, Tevis, is looking at the different things we have on our shelves, because I also have representations of multiple modalities and spiritual influences all over the shelves behind me as well.
I got Ram Dass right here.
I love it. So my shelves are not as close to me as yours, but I think that it's a great question, and it's something that I actually really enjoy talking about. I've had the opportunity to be in a lot of interfaith conversations as well, where this type of thing has come up. And I want to fast forward just a second to one of the most amazing experiences that I had when I was in college. Nothing that I have done has been stereotypical. So I only lived on a college campus for a semester because I was running companies and scaling organizations and kind of working and taking classes at night and on the weekends. But the course that really stands out to me the most was, I forget the formal title of it, but it was all about exploring comparative religions. And so every week we would go and attend a different religious or spiritual ceremony, and we would participate in the rituals and the cultures and learn about that, and then talk about how that overlaid, with the geopolitical, history and things that were going on. And that was just one of the most amazing experiences, of my life. And I think, I still go back when I go back to DC, visit some of those other houses of worship that I don't personally, follow on a regular basis, but they deeply resonated with me. And one of the things that I don't think a lot of people realize, to get back to your framing of people not thinking about Catholicism and self-expression, is that the Latin roots of Catholicism are actually referred to being universal. And so for me, any religious sect or community or spiritual practice is of course going to have humans interpreting that, and humans leading in some way here on earth. And so I think that as humans, we have frailties and we have strengths and we have weaknesses. And so I've always tried to keep that in mind, that the faith for me is something that lives inside of me. And I try to take what is common across most spiritual traditions, this notion of the golden rule, and treating people the way that you would like to be treated is really what I kind of anchor on. And I think that the opportunity to think through what that looks like for me, and then how I see that expressed in other people, is I think the way that I got the connection of the creativity and the self-expression. I was also a dancer from a very young age. I danced from the time that I was 3 or 4 all the way through college. And hopefully when this is over, all kinds. But my favorite was point, to be up on point. I went up on point very early. I actually still have the marks. If you look very closely at my ankles, you can actually still see the ribbon marks, because I danced like 6 days a week. And so I had a very formal, structural, creative expression as well. But
wait, that's like foot binding. I just want to side note that. Anyway, go ahead. Formal or structural? Sorry.
Yeah, I had this formal structural way of having creative expression. One of my teachers was from the Royal Academy of Ballet in London, and so I did everything from ballet, tap, jazz, modern, lyrical, character. And I was actually having this interesting conversation with my husband the other day, that a lot of dancers who dance that often, even from a young age, pick one discipline, and they have this notion of it's very pure, and I explored everything. And so I think this innate and almost insatiable curiosity is something I've had since I was a kid. And so I wanted to explore all of those modalities, and the juxtaposition of being part of a dance community where we would be performing on stage, bringing joy to other people, but we had to be on time with the music. You had to be in sync with the rest of your dance troupe. You had to do costume changes. You had to do all of these things. And for me, that was a gift when I looked at it from my Catholic upbringing, that I could give to other people. But it was also a creative expression that I took a great sense of fulfillment and joy out of. And so the more reflection I do as an adult, I have found that the faith and the dance and how those have intertwined from my earliest memories, I think really just informed this unique perspective that I think I have. And I also align very much with the social justice teachings of the Catholic Church. And so this is where a lot of my political friends, I spent a lot of time, for those of you that don't know me, I spent about a decade in Washington, D.C., and so I have friends of every political stripe. I've worked with every formal political party that exists in some way, and have brought a lot of folks together in doing that. And I think that one of the intersections there was, having this awareness that like the diversity of dance, the diversity of political thought is another form of creative expression. And so this notion that everyone has something unique to contribute, I try, because I don't like to be put in a box. I challenge anyone to try to do that. I knew that other people, probably feel the same way, whether they express that or not. And so whether you're thinking about politics or religion or a discipline of dance, I've always, really tried to look at people as individuals. So maybe this is that notion of sovereignty that you pointed out that I didn't even know I was, that I wasn't aware of at a younger age. I tried to remove those because I didn't want those superimposed on me, and just get to know people as an individual. And I do think that was rooted in the Catholic, in the Bible, in Psalms, in what you learn, and what you learn in many traditions, as I said, about this golden rule. And sometimes I just wouldn't pay as much attention to the way some humans, might decide to implement or live that out in leadership roles in those structures, because they're only human. So recognizing that, we all have faults, including myself, and we all make mistakes, and there are different levels of scale and severity, certainly. But for me, I focused on how I can live that out. So I think those are some of the intersections that informed, how I got here.
Yeah. Well, the whole notion of universality, I mean, that's I think a piece of the religious conversation that gets lost, especially as we get into our landscape currently.
Yeah.
But without going down the religious rabbit hole, because I love the religious, but that's not what this conversation is about. So we just had a woman on. She's awesome. Her name's Abby Sugar, and she's the CEO and founder of Play Out Apparel. And this is gender not neutral, accepting. Like if you want a bra, it could be a bra for a huge person with no breasts, right? If you want boy shorts or jock strap, it could or could not have extra material, right, etc. So and all kinds of fabrics, etc. So she as she says, she's gay AF, right? Like she's like
yeah.
And we talked about, because she also has a visible genetic thing, right, that she has no hair. She's got the condition, it's alopecia. It's not areata, it's the other one that's everywhere. And we were talking about how our points of difference, right, oftentimes become the springboard for us to ask really tough questions about ourselves, right? Like I grew up with a speech impediment, and that caused me to both have compassion for other people who are different, as well as have compassion for other people who were mean or unkind, right? To really understand what is the nature of cruelty, right? And so I credit that, and she credits her experience of both being gay AF and having no hair, right? Of diving into the rabbit hole that life is, right? That all of us are different, and we can either have that alongside of what we do for a living, or we can have that almost as a fuel, as a driver of what we do, and how we forget do for a living, but how we create value and contribute to society. So I'm curious, is there something about you, aside from Catholicism and aside from riding your bike, right, and just being cool and inquisitive, is there anything about you that you feel like kind of forced you to wake up at an early age?
Well, I think that I'm trying to think of maybe a good way of explaining this. I would say that, growing up in a big family, there's lots of love.
Wait. How big?
So my immediate family, I have a younger brother and a younger sister, and my parents. Yeah. But my family, because of where we lived, my cousins are also like siblings. So there are 9 of us, and then we all, now we all have our families. And so in an Italian-American family in this part of the country, typically when you say my family, it means all those folks. So, yes, that's right. In my immediate household, there were 5 of us. But when you're in, and you come from a passionate culture, that's why I'm always talking with my hands. There's a lot of love, but there's also a lot of disagreements. And so I often found myself from a very young age playing that mediator role, in smaller gatherings and larger gatherings, because I wanted to get to the fun stuff. I wanted to get to the playing together and learning together and having good conversation and enjoying food and cooking together and all of those other things that make up those rituals that so many of us have, in whatever our family units look like. And I probably did that more than I really wanted to, in many circumstances. And I think that it also, you were speaking, Tevis, to, crediting some of your early experiences, which looked like challenges probably, right, when we were younger, but how they've informed the way we show up as we grow and mature. And I think that being in situations where, even though I was had a young, immature mind, knowing that the adults were struggling with some like really difficult, challenging things, and that the thing I was attempting to mediate was also, something that was important, but they didn't have the skill or the capacity or the energy or the emotional wherewithal in that moment. I think that really informed the way that I have empathy for lots of different people and differences, because I did that from a very young age. And so I think that was pretty
so cool. What I love about that is this phrase keeps coming up in me, right? Because we all talk about how, the millennials or the exennials or whatever comes after them, they're going to save us. And what I really believe is that when we harness the energy and the power of the child within each of us, the children within us will save us. Right?
Yes.
Because they bring the innocence, the optimism, I may not have the skill set for this. This may be beyond my reach, right? But here I am. And so can I step forward and move into that? Like, I just love that idea. Because when you think about imposter syndrome, or you think about, let's call it lack of character and leadership, which there are so many examples of, right? And not even the obvious. There's so many. But so much of it is this ignored kind of innocence and the purity of essence that is expressed when we're children, right?
Yeah, and I love that, Tevis, and to connect with how we started with giving ourselves a hug. And I think you and I have talked during this quarantine time frame. The thing that I miss the most, and I think you resonated with this, is hugging other people. I'm a big hugger, and that's, anybody that knows me, you get a big bear hug when I see you. And
it's so,
not having that opportunity to give that physical touch and that love has been one of the challenges for me in this place. And I think that the notion of embracing our inner child in these challenging times that we face as an adult, not just current time, but just the things that you realize about life that are a lot harder the older that you get. Oftentimes it is just that kindness and that empathy, and sometimes it's for ourselves, as you said, sometimes giving ourselves a hug, having empathy for ourselves, and sometimes we're able to give that to others. And many times I've been at large corporate strategic retreats, which I know you also facilitate, where people are going around and you're talking about, what is the purpose of your, individual life, not necessarily connected to the company, but what is the thing that is the most important to you? And oftentimes I will respond, and it still feels true to me to this day. The biggest and most fulfilling thing that I think I can ever do is help another human being to really genuinely smile. Really, you see the big grinning
from
the
inside.
cheek. Yes, because when there's so much, as we know, in this country and around the world, there's so many challenges with mental health and addiction and different versions of abuse and things like that. But even beyond that, when you don't see a stereotypical or traditional challenge that's faced, there's just a lot of unhappy people, whether it's they're unhappy at work because they're not valued, they don't have a place to contribute, they're unhappy at home because they're not loved, or they're not able to show up, personally, or they don't have anybody at home. There's not a lot of smiling going around. I mean, I know I'm fortunate to hang out with a lot of people who live into themselves and bring themselves to life. And I'm very fortunate to be in those communities. But there's something to that very genuine, happiness that I think is inside of everyone that, again, people don't always have the opportunity to express. And so if I am able to give that gift to someone else, I mean, it is the most heartwarming thing for me to experience. Yeah. And it can really change someone's day, life, perspective, whatever decisions they might have made. And I think that's really powerful, that one-to-one human connection.
Well, thank you for that, because the way that I've worked with that, both in my own life and just kind of watching, is that our culture has really predicated the conditionality of happiness, right?
Yes.
That happiness is something that happens after X, Y, and Z are in place, right? And so much of what I believe a game changer is able to do is not to postpone the state of being, the state of self-expression, the state of authenticity, the state of flow. They aren't postponing it until they're saying, no, I gotta live that right now. Because that essentially is happiness. Flow. Right. The notion of flow is coined by Csikszentmihalyi, or however the hell you say his name, right? The guy who wrote the book Flow and started the positive psychology, right? This is kind of au courant in our culture, is that flow is a euphemism, or optimal experience is a euphemism for happiness. And I think that what you're saying is really powerful, because it really is about inviting us all back right into this moment. whether or not we have someone at home, whether or not we just got laid off, whether or not, no matter what, right? That we invite ourselves back into this moment and allow ourselves to operate from here in alignment with the spirit that we want to bring to our lives, right? And that like smile, oh my God, how many times has a smile from a stranger at the right time lit you back up?
Absolutely.
So I freaking love that. So okay, question though.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've been tempted to kowtow, because we all have. I'm sure you've been tempted to play the game. I'm sure you've been tempted to just do what the man wants, right? I mean, not for long. I mean, obviously, it was a really short period of temptation. But this moment, this crux, and it's so funny to say this crux of this moment, of this pandemic, of this economic situation, of this blah, 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 because all that's a bunch of BS in a big way. And here's why. Because any moment is a moment of calling yourself to the mat and saying, how do I move forward now, right? If the economy is booming and things are great for you, it's still a scary moment to say, how do I walk away from that and create anew, right? So I'm just curious, because you just left Conscious Capitalism, like kind of the corner store in the direction that capitalism and cultural conversations should be going, right? You left the flagship store to start your own shop, and whether it's that example, or you made a reference to an example as a teenager that you made a pivot that you were really proud of, how do you, so factors flying everywhere, mayhem, it's always going on. What do you do to go boom and get back to your truth, and not only hear it, but then plan forward in such a way that you don't end up living on the street? Because I know that's what's on people's minds. People do want to make a shift. They do want to align. They do want to contribute. They want to be a benefit to themselves and to the world, and blah, 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 blah. And they don't want to end up on the street. And all of that is really overwhelming. My book will help them do that. But how do you do that?
Yeah, I had a feeling that it will. And I did just make a recent shift just a few weeks ago. So, that is the relatively new, piece there. And I've made, as my husband can attest to, who, again, I've been very blessed to, we went to high school together. So we have literally grown up together. How
many people, is there some research on how many people on the planet can say they married their high school sweetheart? Like,
I don't know, but it would be interesting to look at.
And they're still married? Like, I think you're like in the 0.5% or something.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. And but having that continuity of support, from the same person who has seen me go through the various phases of who I am as a woman, who I have become, the different types of woman that I have been, over those years, is definitely a big part of the recipe for the successes and the opportunities that I have had. And I think that one of the biggest things that has guided me, I've made some, as those in my family and my best friends know, I've made very significant shifts very quickly, probably about 5 or 6 times in my life, when it comes to what someone else would see as the professional side of what I do, and to connect with something you referenced earlier, Tevis, of the type of work I do doesn't fit neatly in a job description or a certain company. And I've known that since I was young somehow. Like, I just knew there wasn't one job I had to have or one company that I needed to work for. And I think it's because I've had this insatiable desire, and I've been fueled more for like the mission side of it, as opposed to like getting the job or working at that company. And so for me, whenever I have chosen to work at a company, sure, do you want to hop in there?
Yeah, because what I'm hearing is not being motivated by the identity or the construct.
Exactly.
Right. And I just want to underscore that.
Yeah,
It is not the identity. It is not the construct. right?
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah,
what would you call it?
Yeah, for me, it was the opportunity, like looking at what is going on in the environment and the communities that I am connected to at any point. And I can go all the way back to, if we had 5 hours, I would do this for you, but I can go all the way back to when I was 10 years old and give you those like inflection points, you know, looking at where I had the opportunity to serve and where I had the opportunity to contribute and what I could see kind of like the pieces put together. My brain has certainly honed itself more over the years, but I could see, okay, if I were to enter into this environment and bring my full self to it, I can get X, Y, and Z done, and it'll probably take me 2 to 3 years. And the more times that I did that and the more cycles I went through that, I began to learn a rhythm about myself. And I've shared this with you in some of our private conversations, Tevis, that I want to be the catalyst for that. And I want to help make those connections. And I want to help activate and co-create a culture in each of those environments that I've played in so that those people who are making it their life's mission, and that's where they want to stay, and that's where they want to work. I know that's not my calling, but some people it is, will have more tools and more resource, hopefully more happiness and more joyfulness and playfulness, because I like to bring playfulness to things as much as possible. And when I can see that fully activated and blossoming, not perfect, I don't believe in perfection, it's not a thing, but like that significant progress has been made, there's a bell that goes off in my head of like, okay, you've contributed and you're needed somewhere else. Like that level of service, that level of ability to co-create. You know, I might have the design skills, the architecture skills, the culture skills, but especially when you're talking about anything with culture, home, work, play, any environment, it's not done by one person. It's not led. It's not a strategy. You know, it's all of the people, all of the stakeholders, every member of the community, including this beautiful planet that we live on and the structures of society that we live in. It is all connected and it's all a part of that. And so for me, sometimes I even forget places that I worked or job titles I had. It's like an inside joke with a lot of my friends. They're like, how do you not remember? Because for me, it wasn't ever the institution or the structure. It was that opportunity to contribute. And I was also fortunate enough, I've been very proud of all the work that I've contributed to. And I love all of the organizations that I've worked for. But I also know when my work is done in terms of the contribution and when it's time for someone else's work to start. And so that bell started sounding really loudly for me a few months ago. And so, you know, being responsible. Yeah, I think we were together when it was really started, when it really started ringing. And so, you know, there's of course a responsible way to do that and to move forward. And so to get to the real nitty gritty of what you were saying about making sure you're not living on the streets, part of culture and part of, I think, my desire to show up in a happy and playful, you know, way and to help other people do that is also the crux of building relationships, right? And building long-term. In my case, I'm very lucky. I have a lot of lifelong friends that I've known from the time I was, you know, 5, 6, 7 years old. I have a very close knit group of friends from high school. So we really have been on life's journey together. Whether it's people you've met in your personal life, through a faith community, through a company, through any you know, affiliation that you might have had, building relationships with people that can help support you when you're ready to make transitions. Sometimes that may relate to finances. Sometimes that might relate to a connection. Sometimes that might relate to some other opportunity or even some advice or coaching per se, where they might say, hey, you're really good at ABC. You know, did you ever realize that about yourself? We can't always see the gifts that we have to give to the world. And so as you grow and build, no matter how old you are or what you're doing currently in your professional life or personal life, I think trying to maintain relationships about people that you're letting see different parts of yourself is really important, so that when you do go to make a transition, you can pick up the phone and call. And I will say, to really underscore this, I know that's a really scary phone call for people to make, no matter what kind of circumstances you can be in. And again, there's hours and hours of what I could share here, but just to give you a concept, I mean, I have faced bankruptcy. I have had my first child was premature and born only 1 pound 10 ounces. I have been laid off. I have been downsized. I have been in many challenging, like significantly challenging circumstances. I have close members of my family that deal with deep addiction and have been all in that world. So I have faced some pretty significant challenges like many people have in life.
Thank you.
And I
Thank
think
you.
the thing that's important to remember is we're supposed to help each other. And so it is a scary phone call to make. You know, I was, you know, just previous, a lot of people don't know this about me. I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, Tevis, just prior to accepting the role with Conscious Capitalism, my family and I were, you know, having trouble just putting food on the table for our family. And if it wasn't for close friends and my parents and other family members and my siblings chipping in and helping me get through that transition, I don't know where I would have been. But I had to eat some humble pie, you know, and recognize that, yes, I made choices that helped me get to that place. Now, this was part of my journey of needing to be working in a place where it was aligned with my values so that I could have integrity. But we're supposed to help each other. You know, that is the point of the human race. And so when you're making a transition, don't be afraid to reach out and ask people for help. I have never once in my life reached out to someone that they haven't been able to offer something. Sometimes it might be to say, hey, I can't do this right now, but I have a sister or, you know, a colleague or someone else that I can introduce you to that can. And so I think that's the real lesson, I think, is no matter how big or small your transition is, we've got to do it together.
Okay, for one thing, thank you so much for copping to your challenges along the way, because otherwise you just sound like, oh, she's had a charmed life. And who the hell wants to hear from someone?
Charmed, but challenging, yes.
Charmed and amazing and charming, but with the bumps and bruises and the holy crap white knuckle moments that all of us have had, right? So thank you so much for copying to that, because a lot of people don't understand that we need that. We need to hear about those things too, right? So thank you for that. The other point that you brought up that I feel like cannot be talked about enough is community, right? This isolation, this illusion of isolation, and believe me, I know we all die alone. I know that. I know that no one goes with us, right? I know we come in alone, we go out alone, but in the meantime, we are here with each other, right? Yes. And I think that our culture, the rhythm of our culture, it can give us the illusion and the emphasis of supremacy, right? The emphasis on I've got it all together, right? Again, imposter syndrome. The emphasis, the allergy, the allergic reaction anyone has to someone else having a bad day.
Yeah.
Right. And it's all tied up in that manifestation, positive thinking, you know, crap. But the reality that all of us do hit bumps.
Absolutely.
Right. And the invocation that you are giving people permission to respond to, hey, I need help. I need help right now.
Yeah.
So funny. There was an article in the New York Times this morning, and I know everyone's all over about, oh, I love the Times, I hate the Times, whatever. Great article, because it was a real story about a building being on fire in France. And 2 toddlers were on the 3rd floor.
Oh, God.
And they were going to die. And I think 6 adults pulled themselves underneath these kids and said, jump, 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 jump. Wow. And finally, the kids jumped. The grown-ups all broke their arms. They're in the hospital, etc. But that's what we do, right? That's what we're here for. We're here to put our arms all together and say, jump. We got you. And those kids now have a life, and they will never not know the power of community. So I really thank you for bringing that up, because we forget there's hundreds of people that will help us.
And, you know, Tevis, I just want to say, I mean, what a touching story. So thank you for sharing that. And I think that oftentimes we hear these stories about miraculous moments or the adrenaline surge when there is an emergency or this terrible scenario. Certainly community is needed during those times, but it's also needed every day. Everyday kindnesses, every day in your work community, every day in your home, every day in any community that you participate in. I mean, there's all those sayings and cliches, but they are true that you never know what anyone is going through at any given moment. And knowing your own journey and knowing your own challenges and what you have faced as an individual, that can be magnified and multiple levels and multiple people that you pass on the street, any given day. And so I think there's something to remembering this everyday calling to look for community and to build community. And so when I also think of culture, the culture work that I have done, it is about seeding new communities. And then what I endeavor to do and strive to do, and I think is working quite well, is then connecting those communities to each other, and making sure that people that maybe might think they're more different than each other, at first blush, but when you realize again and reminded that we're all one race, we're all humans, you start to see all of these intersections and opportunities to connect. And so community is incredibly powerful, and it can look really different. And it can behave wildly differently. And we are all part of multiple communities. So I think, again, if anyone is thinking about making a transition, maybe having some time with yourself and thinking through what are all the different types of communities that I belong to and who might I be able to go to. You don't have to have a relationship for 10 years to go to someone to ask for help. You could have just met them yesterday. And there's probably a likely chance that if they can help you and you ask, they will.
They will. Thank you so much for that. Well, so we've totally burned up 45 minutes like nobody's business. So I'm gonna just pause and say, hey, you people on the line, does anyone have a question for Amanda? Of course,
Marjorie does.
Yes. Come on in,
Hi,
Marjorie.
Amanda. Love
Hi, Marjorie.
you. So good to
Love
see
you too.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about, making people smile. I mean, that's kind of my own personal mission as well. And also that concept of some people don't know what their talents are, right? And helping bring it out to people. So I was curious with your work, with culture work, and, a lot of our work is culture work too, and working with people within corporations. And a lot of times the people aren't necessarily empowered, right, to do what they want. Mm-hmm. And, but do you have any suggestions? Like, what are your key recommendations for helping them smile? Like the small little the things that people can do to create movement within an organization?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Marjorie. And you said something that I think is really key. And I have certainly felt it. I'm sure everyone has. You're in a job and you have to do something you don't want to do, right? We've all been there. We've all had to do that. And I think, and maybe this was something that I had some early experiences in now that I reflect on it, just in this moment, when I was in those situations, I also remembered that I might have to do this because I have a responsibility. I agreed to do it. I signed the work contract, whatever the case may be. And in integrity, I'm going to follow through on that, but they can't tell me how to do it. And so this is where the culture piece comes in. And so I think if you're in a situation, in a corporate environment, in a company, in an organization where you have work that needs to get done because of your job and your role, I think you can make a different choice about how you can show up and do it. And so you can build your own community, whether that's with other colleagues or other people that maybe are in your field or are doing a similar type of work that you're doing, where yes, you might not want to do the white paper that you're assigned or the project management task, but you can do it with flourish and you can bring your own personality to it. And you can maybe get some insights from other people on how to do it perhaps innovatively. If you are at a higher level in the organization, let's say you happen to be maybe a manager of a team or you run a division, you're not in the C-suite, but you're at a little bit of a higher level of management. And you recognize that maybe the whole company isn't going to do something in a certain way, but that you have a little bit of autonomy or sovereignty, in the space that you are leading. I've often seen a lot of companies and clients will kind of pilot a different way of getting work done. And I have come to use this terminology that I also think my friend Melanie Dubecco at Tarani uses, of career mixology, where what we try to do with the teams that we have led and have the responsibility for is constantly asking the team what parts of their job they like doing and what parts of their job they don't like, and maybe also giving space and voice to the skills that they have that maybe don't check the boxes on the job description, but that they maybe they take a pottery class on the weekend or they learned to code last summer. Those are skills you might need in your company or in your organization that you might have no idea your team has. So I think there's a way you can approach it if you are not in any type of a leadership role, and bring in lots of insights to that. And then there is an opportunity to potentially change a little bit at a leadership level if you do have an organizational, capacity where you're called upon to be able to do that. And then I think the third piece to think about is that most people these days, modern times, don't get into a job and stay there for 40 years and earn their gold watch. There are certainly still some individuals that is where they're comfortable. There are some companies that are structured that way. But most people tend to move around in their careers, whether it's because they're looking for a different culture or they're looking for a different skill set. And so I would also encourage you to spend some time on your own reflecting on that, whether that's journaling or listening to podcasts or listening to other entrepreneurs or other, thought leaders that have done something in a space that you're interested in. I am a voracious reader. I like the weekends that I have spent at home here. I mean, I'm going through 4 or 5 books in a weekend because I just love learning about how other people mix and match things. And so don't let yourself stay in that place. If the work that you're doing is really not the work that brings you a sense of joy and you are constantly feeling like there's work that you don't want to do, you got to start looking for where else you might be able to go and where your gifts are going to be welcomed. And so I think there's a way to manage and lean into it. There's a way to potentially change it. And then there's a way to, look for where your next step might be and make that transition as well.
Yeah.
Thank you. Love that. It really helps empower people that might not feel in a position to do much, but those are so many things that they can do. So that's great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? Because if no one else has a question, I have a silly question.
I like silly questions.
I know, they're so much fun. Okay, I don't see one coming. Amanda, what is one book you have recently read that you would really encourage people to pick up?
Let's see. Well, to go on what we were just talking about and Marjorie's question, where there's an inspirational story in it, but I think it relates to one of the key things that's really important to me is Joy Inc. by Richard Sheridan, which I had read years ago, but I'm rereading and just on the last chapter now. It is about Menlo Innovations in Michigan, and they are a software development company, and the complete reinvention of the way that they interact and the way that they have built culture. And now they are, recognized for that around the world. But ultimately what it is about is bringing joy and playfulness into the workspace so that people can be people. At the end of the day, I don't care what kind of company you run, what kind of organization you're a part of, it is people that will be powering that. And we spend the vast majority of our lives in professional roles, whether those are formal or informal. And I think it's really important that we can have a sense of joy and be playful with each other in the vast majority of our lives. As we were talking about, Tevis, we don't know how long we'll all be here, on this planet. And I think that we've got to play while we're here. And so that book gives you a corporate setting, but a really amazing story. And one of the things that I love that I think is really countercultural, that's really important to me as a working mom of 3 kids, they brought children into their workplace. And so now they've had 3 babies that have been raised from literally, after the first couple of months, up until their toddler years, and are now going into school. And they got the benefit of the love and the wisdom and the connectivity and the community of that entire company, not just the family nucleus. And I think that building companies and cultures like that, in particular here in the United States, is really, really, really important. I think women are, I'm going to get on my soapbox just a little bit here at the end. I think women are incredibly powerful, just sources of love and care and compassion. And once you've become a mother, that just expands at exponential, levels. And so I think that, I have this notion that women are mass creators, and we need to empower that and create more spaces for that in companies around the world. And so Joy Inc. is a really beautiful story of what that looks like, and a way that I think there's lessons for people at various levels to really take away.
I'm so grateful you took time to be with us. Thank you so much, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me.
And for all you people, it is on pre-order. See it? It's so pretty. It's even pretty. See, I made sure it was pretty on the inside. No, forget about the prettiness. What about the prettiness in you that you want to get out there. That's really what's pretty. So it's on pre-order at Barnes & Noble. It's Target online. I was like, who put it? Weird. Barnes & Noble and Amazon. Get it, because we're going to be leading. I'm going to be leading a weekly, like a chapter by chapter thing for free, just because we are in a state where everyone needs to be aligning with their highest capability of contribution and expression. And that is what we got to do, people. You and me right now. So thank you. Please get the book. Love up on Amanda. You can find her on LinkedIn. She's the Balance Badass on Twitter.
I'm actually not super active on Twitter, but I am on Instagram if you want to follow me on social or LinkedIn. But yes, thank you.
So thank you, everybody. And we have another great conversation coming up next week with Cos Marte, former drug kingpin, ex-con turned job creator. Really amazing stories. So come and join us. And thank you so much for being here with us. Have a great day.
Thank you for creating the space, Tevis. You are amazing, and you are changing the world. So it's a pleasure to be here with you. Bye, everybody.
Love you, Amanda. Bye, everybody.